I'm wondering, Ben, why you believe that climate change is not an emergency.
Okay, because they're wrong. So now here's the, sorry, I didn't let you get to the question mark. The reason that they are wrong is because all of these studies are done in the absence of mitigating measures. So as I've said before, when I talk about climate change, when you're talking about climate change, there are a couple of things human beings can do. And by the way, I accept IPCC estimates. They range from sort of the mild, like 1.5 degrees Celsius, all the way up to the not very mild, like 4 degrees Celsius, again, over the course of the century. And because there is this range, the more extreme versions of this, the 4 degrees Celsius, whenever you read the IPCC reports, which I have, when you read those reports, they say in them that they have very low confidence that some of the more catastrophic sort of predictions are going to occur. They will say low to moderate confidence. The less catastrophic predictions, they'll say more like high confidence or fair high confidence, that kind of stuff. Okay, here is the thing. When people suggest that there is not going to be any sort of mitigation measures, this is wrong, or adaptation. So there's two ways you can deal with it. One is mitigation, which is we all stop driving cars, we stop using electricity, we don't have kids anymore, right? We really cut down on our carbon usage in ways that are catastrophic to the world economy, and what it really mostly does is it says to people in the developing world, hey, you're screwed, because those are the people who really need carbon-based emissions. It's very easy for those of us who live in extraordinarily prosperous societies to say, you know what, I'm cutting down my carbon emissions a little bit because we live in very prosperous societies. Carbon-based energy is by far the most efficient form of energy on the planet, and it's worthwhile to notice that people who are living in developing or undeveloped countries, those people are still, in large part, burning things like dung for fuel, which is not only carbon intensive, but also a horrifying way to live. And telling those people you can't use carbon-based energy is a mistake. In order for us to take the mitigation measures that would be necessary in order to dramatically lower the trajectory of global climate change, you'd have to get China to sign on, which they will not. You'd have to get India to sign on, which they will not. Those are the two largest carbon-based emitters on planet Earth, and we live in a geopolitical world in which a carbon emission from China counts the same as a carbon emission from the United States, which says, again, this doesn't mean there's nothing we can do. It means what we ought to be doing is the thing that will prevent the 83 million deaths, which is why I'm very confident it will prevent the 83 million deaths, adaptation. This means, for example, that we build seawalls. The simple fact of the matter is that New Orleans exists below sea level. When the seawalls, when levees were breached because the levees were poorly built, it killed 10,000 people. When the levees, last time around, this last year, there was a major hurricane. It swept directly through the exact same area, and pretty much no one was killed. The reason being, the levees were much better built.
So I will not pretend to know that much about the emissions and all of this stuff that Ben Shapiro just came out with. He's like, so that was a lot. What I will say is this, and this is what I say whenever we're sort of battling the kind of climate crazies agenda. What you have to understand about the climate change agenda is that this has nothing to do with clean energy. This has nothing to do with climate. This has nothing to do with saving lives. This has everything to do with the Green New Deal, which is the far left socialist wish list that AOC and her cronies and all the people in the squad really want to push forward. This is universal pre-K. This is quote-unquote free college and university. Of course, nothing is free. It's all subsidized by taxpayer dollars, which is another thing they never kind of speak about. And also, it is all about, you know, that sort of far left socialist agenda wish list, okay? So whenever you hear the climate crazies talk about this, and whenever you hear the people say, oh my God, the climate, that's what it's about. And if you look, even, and here's the thing, because nobody knows anything, nobody remembers anything about history nowadays, the climate crazies were telling us that the world was going to freeze over 40 or 50 years ago. But this is what nobody remembers. So they pretty much depend on the fact that nobody in the younger generation knows history. Of course, this is why, because they've taken over the public school system and teaching them absolute nonsense so that they can keep on regenerating this stuff generation after generation after generation.